They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Program to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed. Disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight on Roadways, we have a badass of fire and ice in the flesh, balancing the up and the down, the yin and the yang, the good, the true, and the beautiful, all in one spinning motion of her life and ways through the words and actions in many forms all over the social spheroids of our lives, and most recently in the form of Project Chaney, a new series of rabbit hole diving and interpersonal exploration of the various aspects of truth and consciousness in our modern age. The leader of church services in the form of palaver between two open souls, the carrier of a channel wider than the sum of all, and the hostess with the mostest. Chaney, it's always amazing to have you on Rogueways. How are you doing tonight?
It is always good to be here. How are you?
I'm good. I love getting to talk with you because I feel like I can just like chill in with my friend instead of trying to like accomplish something, which is maybe better. Maybe I should always have that mindset.
I know. Anytime I kind of go in with a itinerary, I always fall short of my own expectations. So I kind of just like having no expectations, and it's nice sometimes to just be on somebody else's show and let them drive.
Oh my God, it is. I love it. I know. I totally know that feeling. And you're absolutely right. I am going to pause really quick and just say thank you to all the beautiful rogue warriors out there. I love you. I appreciate you. I honor you for your tips, your super chats, your membership in rogue.locals.com, your donations to paypal.me/Corey Sharman, and your purchases of my books, Orgone pendants, plaques, crystal, stone, blessed jewelry, tarot reading, soul sessions, ceremonies, all of that from the shop at rogueways.org. You guys are truly the reason that we can keep diving deeper together, and my gratitude, so much gratitude goes out to all of you. Thank you so much for being here and being you. That's you. If you're listening or watching, talking to you. Thank you. And Chaney, the pointless question of the episode I'm going to ask you is kind of random, but okay, so what's your favorite type or style or shape of ancient structure, like ziggurat or pyramid or you know, just like stone towers, or like, and why?
I think my favorite ancient, like seventh wonder of the world type thinking thing is definitely the enormous statues, like Colossus, Helena, like all these ideas of like art carved giant things.
Yeah.
Like people. I think I like people the most.
That's interesting, because you know, even if you look at like even the tiny figurines I have back here, I'm like, wow, that's really skilled. Or like a life size, like, you know, Michelangelo or whatever, like that's pretty amazing. But that shit, like what you're talking about, those are like beyond large, right? They're like many stories tall, and like
the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Like I don't believe there's like the thought that maybe it was a saved head of Colossus and then they just redressed it up with this like Helios crown and like did something. But it also looks like it could be Helena. If you ever look at her. So I just, is she Liberty? Is Liberty? Who's Liberty?
Interesting. And who builds these things? Like the Statue of Liberty, I guess we've been given like an explanation, but especially some of the ancient ones, you're like, how? How did you plan that and then carry this out if you're my size?
And there's got to be metal. It's made of a certain metal.
Have you heard the idea that some of these are like poured actually, and they found a way to like liquefy stone and pour it into castings, and that's why it's able to be so like lifelike and flowing?
I think it could be metal's melted like that. I guess stone could be melted and poured. You know, well, it is cement. Isn't that just?
Well, I think that's more sand and stuff, but lava's melted stone, right? Maybe I'm
Yeah, and if
tripping.
you probably could make a cast of a certain kind of metal that was just hotter than the stone itself, it would hold it.
That'd be cool. Yeah, that, and I've also heard the idea that maybe sometimes, maybe people had like whether magic spells or like some sort of scientific way, both are kind of similar, right? But of turning people into stone, and that's why some of these are so lifelike. And that would then ask the question too, like how big were giants, if there were giants, if we're talking like that going on with some of these huge statues like the ones you're talking about.
Or there's people that get into the plasma apocalypse theory where the big like pareidolia rocks that look like an elephant, but what if they were an elephant?
Ah,
Or that this looks like an enormous snake. I think they have one in Brazil that when they actually pull away from it, it looks like this enormous snake structure just laying that they're like, this is a cave system. You can go all the way through the snake.
wow.
So, and all the way through Mexico, they worship big serpents. The longer we're on the planet with cameras, we're finding bigger animals.
True. So
I don't know.
that's the idea that the plasma is like feeding the energy of this plane or sphere or whatever, wherever we are, and that it like dropped down in intensity, and so everything got smaller, and the things that were huge like died and calcified.
I don't know the whole plasma apocalypse theory, like that it just like poured in and crystallized everything to the certain kind. Well, I guess if you look at petrified wood, that people that say, look we got this from Mars, but then when they really studied it, it was just petrified wood, or the moon rock, it was just petrified wood. So some things petrify in this different, like it turns to stone almost, like fossils. They say that's not really the bone, it's where the bone like left place, and then all the certain calcium poured into it, and then that. I don't know the whole explanation of fossils, but I know they're not supposed to be the bone anymore. They're like where the bone once was.
Yeah, and that's what's going on with petrified wood. It's like the wood was there, and then like all these crystalline things came in and like took that shape and that form. It's really beautiful, actually. I love petrified wood. I've been to the Petrified Wood National Park, I think, twice. It's the same both times, but I still like going there.
And all the people that are into stones and rocks and stuff, they always say petrified wood has its own whole metaphysical meaning and properties.
Yeah, because it's a bunch of different crystals in one.
Ooh, a petrified wood wand or staff. That's next level thinking.
Dude, how do you even carve stuff like that? I have like diamond tips for drilling stone and stuff, and it's really hard still. Like it's not easy.
Maybe you don't need to carve it. Maybe it'd be naturally formed for you.
You just find one. That's how I do all my tools. I just find them how they are. I'm like, there it is. It's perfect already. I like rough.
I like it.
I like rough things.
You know that movie, 128 Hours or something with James Franco, and he had the rock fall on his arm. And the Levine, I'm probably calling it this whole wrong name.
I would be. So you're doing better than me.
Yeah, it's like 100 hours, and he's hiking alone, and he leaves the Swiss Army knife. It's like all the little bad decisions that lead up to this rock falling on his arm, and then he has to cut his own arm off.
Oh God.
And it's based on a true story.
Oh God.
That there's one part in that movie where he's like hallucinating, and he's like, this rock waited its whole life to fall on my arm. And it shows the rock like falling from space and hitting, and the dinosaurs growing around it and everything in time, all the way until the waters, the canyons being formed, and then this rock tipping over and falling on his arm. And like this, the energy of it, sometimes I think that with all the stones, anything you have in your hand, you're like, this metal waited its entire life to be in my hand.
Yeah, and this is what's cool too. I love that you're bringing this up, because I feel like people think they have to go out and find like the crystal that was like carved into like the perfect, I don't know, pyramid or something, or like shape that they like, or that it was like rounded and smooth and shined, and it has to, and then it's really expensive, and I think people think they have to get that, and you can get those, they're beautiful, I'm not opposed to that, but I think you can find things like that are just perfect how they are, and they came to you that moment for that reason, like that is in its rough state exactly how you were supposed to encounter it, and that's a beautiful thing. I have this piece of moldavite, and people are like, oh, you should shape it and you should do all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know, I kind of like it exactly how it is. Like, I just kind of want to hold it, look at it, use it, love it, leave it in its form.
Leave it rough.
Yeah.
Do you think a monolith and a pyramid are the same structure?
Interesting. I mean, they are at the top, right? The monolith has the pyramid at the top.
Yeah, we're just assuming that there isn't the monolith underneath the pyramids that we see.
True. And then how massive it would be. And then
Enormous.
And then how big even is this place? You know, where
Doesn't it look like Shipton sand in Giza?
yeah, and you know, this is what's interesting too about that whole area is like it's clearly dead, right? It's not. I just had Mitch the orgone donor on, and maybe you can have him on someday if you're into that. But I don't know if it was in the show or after the show, but we were talking about deserts being unnatural, like that this isn't something that nature just does, is desertify. You know, that something happened, and then it got me thinking. I'm like, dude, is the desert like a scar? And then if it's a scar, like what happened and what's down there? And maybe it's giant fucking pillars and huge like Tartaria-esque, you know, mud flood sort of like super hidden things down there. It's something like intense went down and just like destroyed that area, filled it with all the sand of whatever it was destroyed or something.
Or what if we're not a water planet? What if we were just a land planet? And as the water slowly came, it would change everything, and not everything would be able to swim. Not everything would be able to climb. Maybe the trees were a lot bigger down at the bottom. You know, at the top of a mountain, the trees are the scarcest. What if we're at the tops of all the mountains right now? Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's the opposite, because we're always told we're this water planet. We're this water planet. Well, if as above, so below, it doesn't represent that there's any other water planet. I mean, people are like, well, actually, in the 3,000 solar system that the satellite we sent out in 1977 discovered, it's a water moon on, well, okay, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever.
Prove it.
Okay, there's a water planet out there. I believe you, but okay, I believe you, but I feel like we don't really know anything about here.
I love that science fiction has to make all planets like uniform. They're like, this is the water planet, and that's the forest planet. Over here's the desert planet. I'm like, what? They can't be.
It rains
mixed?
diamonds here.
Yeah, that's all it does. Like, we just followed that science fiction trend into our own imaginings of space.
I was kind of thinking of even like Space Force, or even like this idea of Star Wars. Like, we think in such a human way that we're like, in Star Wars, the politics of space is outlandish. Like, we still think in this way, like Spaceballs. Like, it's still this very human, third dimensional way. And the way we think is the way they told us it would be from all those shows I just mentioned.
Yeah. We have literally like no imagination about it.
We are the Ouroboros of dumb.
It just keeps going and going. Yeah, I'm like, I was just reflecting too. I'm like, it has to be liquid out there. If there's something out there in space, it has to be some kind of liquid or gas, which is kind of liquidy. What the fuck else would it be? It's clearly not a vacuum, right? I don't know. I don't
believe in black holes anymore.
Yeah, me either. Well,
I think it's so stupid. How could something get close enough to this thing? It sucks everything into singularity.
like,
But what satellite did we send out to send back zeros and ones? What to give us the explanation of these black holes exist? And even their explanation of physics of the black hole just sitting there pulling everything into it, then nothing exists.
Yeah.
And then, okay, we believe all this stuff is real. You know what we should do? Create a CERN to create a black hole here. If a black hole is a dime size, it's the ender of everything.
everything.
That's the whole idea of the black hole. So I just feel like black hole is like Black Lives Matter or dark matter. They keep trying to like give us this like the darkness is greater than you. Powerful, and it's not.
The boogeyman. I think you're absolutely right. It's just one more thing to worry about and be scared of. I do, however, I think about like if the electron model or whatever particle model is right, and we have electron, proton, and neutron, that like maybe one of those is actually a black hole, but really all that means is it's something like completely neutral somehow. Because there's this Nassim Haramein guy, and he's got this idea that there's a black hole at the center of actually every single atom. And I'm like, would that be like just like the center? But it'd have to be in balance. The atom still exists. It's not like sucking in everything and eating it. So it's not even Really a black hole then, maybe. So I don't even know what the point is. But the
But
concept...
maybe it could balance if like there was one with a black hole and another with a black hole. They could balance each other from pulling the entire universe into itself or too much.
Or
as long as there was the balance of
Yeah.
another black hole.
Oh, they're like swirling around each other or something.
Oh my gosh, we created a new twin flame.
Woo!
A black hole balance. It's like
You're
for you
my
darker
black
folks
hole
out there.
balance. Yeah, that's the goth. I love it. Do you want to be a black hole with me?
Will you balance my darkness?
With more darkness. Not actual balance. I just want
Will
us
you
to be dark
balance my
together.
darkness with your goth?
I love it. And then they're slowly sucking each other in until they become one. Dude, it is actually kind of twin soul-y.
Oh my gosh, it's so dark and romantic. It's so black hole beautiful. I do believe in black holes again. I'm glad we had this conversation.
You know, in the book, The Neverending Story, which people will never get sick of me talking about, I'm sure, the Nothing, you know the Nothing from The Neverending Story?
Mhm.
Okay, the Nothing is actually, like, worshipped by a whole swath of Fantastica, which is Fantasia. And all of these people, like, worship it and love it and want to serve it, and they go, like, madly dancing into it and just fling themselves into it.
I have a question right now about that. What the fuck did that wolf ever have to do with the Nothing?
Okay, the wolf was the representative of the Nothing who was sent to destroy Atreyu and Bastion because they were it knew they were the thing that was going to stop the Nothing. So it's a servant of the Nothing. And
So
actually,
the Nothing wasn't the storm.
the Nothing is actually... This is like my best moment here. This is my favorite thing to talk about. The Nothing
I'm
is
so into it. I love the Neverending Story.
so good. The book is so fucking good. Like, people have no idea that it's all of alchemy and all of magic and all of, like, psychology and everything you ever needed to know about the Mysterium in one place. It's amazing. But the Nothing is actually humans telling lies to each other, which creates a void in our imagination and the world of imagination, which is what Fantastica is. So it's the anti-imagination is
Like,
lies.
it's so imperative that Sebastian has that moment of breakfast at the beginning with his father, where his father's just placating the whole thing, not really telling him. And you can see Sebastian. Because that moment's so boring. You have to wait till the, bully scene happens, till he runs into the bookstore and he finally gets to school and he finally gets to the basement. And you're like, oh, finally, we can get into the story, because you've seen it so many times that it's like that scene with his dad. Who is his dad? Is that, that's Major Dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it Major Dad, the guy who played Major
I
Dad?
think it is. It's like the archetype of father in the 80s.
I love that. And then the old man wants him to take the book.
Oh, yeah. He just makes it like, oh, yeah. But he has to warn them, too, because it actually is dangerous. And especially in the book, it highlights that, like, you might never go home. You might be here forever. Like, too bad for you. You're screwed.
Have you ever bought the Neverending Story, the double Ouroboros snake? Do you own that
Someone
somewhere
bought
in
it
your life?
for me, and I love wearing it because it's like my favorite thing. I have it tattooed on my leg. I am a ridiculous person. My entire leg, like partial sleeve, is just the Neverending Story book. It's got the Nothing. It's got the Sea of Sorrows. It's got that. It's got the Ivory Tower. Like, it's ridiculous.
I pictured the two, you know how Atreyu has to go through the gates?
Yes.
And there's the two things on either side that shoot the lasers at him.
Yeah, the Southern Oracle. The
What's your
Sphinx.
favorite character in the book?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, Falcor's even cooler in the book. So but Bastion's the main character, and he's really, in the book, he like shines even more, because you see in the book he's actually this like really overweight, like super, he's a dork still, but he's like also overweight, and like he hates himself, and yeah, he goes through. So part of the thing is, so he gets sucked into Fantasia right through this book, and he's there, and he actually you don't meet Atreyu at all. You don't know there's anything happening. He's just in this world now, and it's really dark, and he has to start creating it. And so he starts making wishes, and these wishes create the entire world. So all of Fantastica is actually him creating it. He can create himself, and he can create the world by just imagining, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was someone else to talk to now? And who is someone really strong and powerful, and then all of a sudden this like.
So he's like a master manifester.
Absolutely.
He's like the fastest snail in the world. Done.
Yes, exactly.
Created.
And
a thing that eats rocks. Done.
Yes, and they're all in there too. And the thing that starts though, like, God, I don't even remember now actually how it goes. I read this every year and I still can't remember which order it's in. But anyways, every wish he makes, basically, he doesn't know it, but it's destroying one of his memories of the real world. And you can't get back to the real world without memory of the real world. And by the time he figures that out, he has only one memory left, but it's the memory that's the most repressed and hated, that he's rejected the most, so he doesn't know what it is, and he has to go digging into his psyche to find it. Soul retrieval.
Huh. Yeah, and that's why it's like at the end it makes more sense of what they're trying to show in that moment that he's standing there with the princess. Like,
yeah, oh, I got chills.
It's like it makes so much more sense. I never read it. You should read it on your show.
Dude, I would love that. I wonder if I get copyright strike. That would be like my favorite thing to do ever. People would be like, wow, this is boring. But seriously, I can't get people to read this book enough. The book is beyond fantastic. It's literally every secret you ever needed to know about yourself or this place or what you're doing here. But anyways.
I love it.
Enough of the never-ending story. I guess I want to jump into things that are way more normal and stupid and not fun at all. But I wanted to get your takes on them. Because you always have interesting takes, and I know that we have all the auditing shit going on, and I wonder what you think about all of that. You're like my person who understands the red-blue non-divide.
Like every day I wake up, it's 3 days away that the auditing's going to be done. Every day I wake up, it's like 3 days away. I keep thinking we're all waiting for the news to tell us the truth. Like, we're all just like, any day now, they're going to have to tell us some fragment of the truth. Look at all this stuff out there. But I don't know what's happening with that. I don't think anyone in America, I mean, I know there's slept people, but the Joe Biden thing is like, I don't even know how many people are getting down with that. I do the whole coming to your door and vaccinating you. I think we're a spiritual war, so that takes away free will. Yeah. And the second you take away free will for someone, you're karmically, you have to pay for that when you take away their free will. So I don't think they're going to play it that way. I think they're going to give you the illusion they're going to do that. They're going to take away your grocery store and your Amazon and your flights and travel, and they'll give you the illusion of that until your free will says, yes, I'll do this. I don't know what it is, but that seems to be the most important thing to them, our free will.
I think you're absolutely right. They do all of this work to try and get us to choose these things over and over and over again, whatever the thing is. This time it's like vaccines, right? And other times it's like killing someone in a war or, I don't know, doing all sorts of stuff. And they have to convince us, they have to manufacture this crisis and this consent and this illusion in order to get us to choose it. Because they could just come and try and force everybody, right? I mean, I don't actually think...
what's even the boo-ha with the stealing of the election? What do we even do? Why even mess around with an election? Why not just have the king of Arizona and the king of Florida? And what's happening? They could just sell us whatever narrative they wanted to sell us. I mean, they just masked up the world for a year, and everybody just was like sheep jumping over a fence, like just counting sheep. We all fell asleep, counting sheep, putting on their masks. There must be, and it doesn't make logical sense to me. Like every way I've tried to like look at it in the 3D and study the history, why do they need to steal an election? It only makes sense if I start thinking about it spiritually.
Yeah.
Like consent of your signature matters. That's why they don't want you to write cursive anymore.
Yeah. You think that that's part of it, is the signature itself is meaningful and it has to be in cursive?
I think the contract matters. I think the statues matter that they're pulling down. I think the metal the statues are made of matter. I think it's less to do with what it represents than the metal and the spell that's casted on it. It's casted metal. So they want to pull it down under the illusion of something else. And it seems the same as the Dixie flag. There's magic. There's flag magic. There's a reason that every country has a specific flag over it, and every symbol and every color matters. And whatever you look up and think the history of your flag is, that's not the real history. There's like other wars going on, and eagles matter on a flag, and serpents matter on a flag, and wreaths matter on a flag, and having a native person matters on a flag, and seals matter on a flag, and standing behind a seal while you speak matters. Like all this stuff There's higher up people. They understand that the alchemy of a certain kind of wood gavel banging a certain kind of wood podium matters differently. It's alchemy.
Yeah.
So I think our contract and our signature is part of our free will. We're accepting this. We have a birth certificate and a death certificate. We have a social security number. We have a marriage license. We have all these things that we're just signing away constantly. And that's why I think it's so important, from Facebook and Instagram to your life insurance policy. They put all these tiny little words, tiny little spells, tiny little things written down, and you have to sign it. And why is your digital signature so important? Somewhere with your digital signature, you had to sign that in cursive to say, yep, every time I type this series of numbers, that's my digital signature.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all, they could just steal whatever. We could all be in chains right now and just like picking away at the Grand Canyon, just digging for gold or whatever we're fucking meant here for.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's something bigger than that. That's why they have to steal it. And they have to tell us they're stealing it so they don't pay for it karmically. Of everything, whatever it is, but it's all getting rid of your free will. Yes, you voted for this, whatever it is. Like I want to put a fire in the tribe. There's 10 of us. I want to cook the pig tonight. And you're like, I don't want to. Well, I guess we're taking it to a vote then, aren't we? And most of the tribes like we're doing this. And maybe some people of the tribe, their vote matters more because they've been around forever and they've watched a famine come. And so when the old lady comes out like, no, the vote doesn't matter this time. Eat the pig today because there's going to be pigs are coming through tomorrow. So we're going to have more pig. Or nope, you're not doing this because this is the kind of year that we'll have an early winter. I don't know. I think votes matter somewhere because that's your free will. That's your say-so. How does Lindsay feel about this? How does Chaney feel about this? Is Chaney ballsy enough to stand up and say she feels this way? And she's free to change her mind about it. I don't know.
Love it. No, it makes sense. And I mean, we have it throughout all of these different like lore too, even like vampires, you have to invite them in. And I know on the spiritual front that like something cannot affect you if you don't agree to it. And I think it sucks for people to hear that because they're like, well, why is this thing attacking me? It's like, because you invited it to. And they're like, well, no, I don't want to. And like, yeah, but you told that it could and you believe that it can, and so it will. So you have to change that. You have to undo that. You have to rescind that agreement and that belief in it, and then it'll stop 100%. But if you don't believe that and you continue agreeing to it, it's going to keep going. But I love this idea too about the metal statues, and you brought this up recently too, and I was like, I have never thought of that before. Like the specific metal they're going to use and where are they going to put it, like at what point in this place and at what design does it make with other things around it that it's connected to, or other areas of that same metal, and the numbers that go along with it and all of the little details. And when I think about stuff like that, I'm like, how do these motherfuckers have the time and the patience for this shit? Like, this is what
I thought
you
of a
spend your
better way
time
than
doing?
currency. A better way than currency to spread your metal, if it really was protective and had a spell, if you really wanted to do it schlickly, would be in bullets and arms.
Ooh, that's...
The bullet wouldn't be the powerful thing. The spell of the metal would be way more powerful.
And there's like numbers and letters and fucking insignia and shit put on those too, on the bullets and the gun.
And think how instantly safe the spell of having guns and bullets in your house, and you're like, yes, I will sleep a little better tonight.
Yeah, and look how often we buy them all, even though they're like, swear to God, we're taking them away from you this time. We're all like, buy a bunch, and they're like, haha.
That's like their perfect marketing.
Yeah.
they're like, we're just gonna get a politician to come out after a school shooting and say, let's try to take the guns away, and then they sell out.
Dude, and then the emotion you put into it, if you ever do use it, it's never going to be emotionless. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's rarely for most people going to be emotionless. It's going to be a pretty emotional time. You're like investing that into this spell that's already going.
And shooting a gun and getting competent at shooting a gun, that's a whole different kind of spell.
That's true.
It's a whole, and just walking around, it's kind of the idea of if everyone in a place has a gun on their hip, no one's robbing that place. No one's going to rape that lady. No one's going to steal the register. No one's going to arson it. But if no one has it because a law is made, the one person that doesn't give a fuck about the law will.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm just like, there's studies you can look up about DUIs, and those haven't helped because people It's the same people are still going to do it. Like I was watching something across the TV that was talking about, well, before computers and forensic, look how many more serial killers there were. No, if serial killers ever existed, which I believe most of those are CIA anyway and cover-ups of their weird rituals, if they ever existed at all, they're still doing it regardless of computers. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what people? It's like everything's sold to us on a narrative, and then we all think we're smart the second I'm like, oh, this thing told me this. But guess what, Lindsay? I'm smarter than you now with this thing. It's like
some random
no.
thing told me a thing, so I'm better than you now.
And we just all believe it. Put it in documentary form. Oh, this is fact.
Yeah.
Have a news person tell you it. This is fact. Like, I don't know.
Questionable. Why would they lie? Why would they lie?
Why would they lie?
What, you've never met a liar?
Chaney? Why would they lie about masks? You think Dr. Fauci's just lying about masks, Chaney? Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever met really powerful psychopaths? They are pretty good at it. Huh, but why? You're like, dude, because you're a slave now. Like you said, you consented, you agreed, and now you're their slave. They own you. You'll do whatever they want you to do. At the very least, it'll be a lot harder for you to stop doing what they want you to do and stop going along with it. Because even on a non-magical, non-esoteric sort of level, like in your own mind, when you've agreed to something and you're choosing that now, like it's a lot harder to change that than, inertia. You're going to keep going along that path, just psychologically, just habitually.
It's all metals. That's why they want to put unprecious metals in you. They want to put metals in your teeth and metals in your IUD and metals in your vaccines and metals in your metals. They want to just put all this and weird metals in you. But then people that are like really geeked out on health, they're like, you should have colloidal silver.
And gold.
You could, yeah. Or think of the people that have really sensitive skin. They can't have bullshit metal near them. We all have those same sensitivities. Some people's instruments just show it off. It's anything they tell you, oh, pregnant ladies shouldn't do this. No one should do it.
Yeah.
Like,
the pregnant ladies will show it easier. The fetus will show it easier. So we have to hide it by not letting them do it. Yeah, impure metals are really what they try to get into so many things. You can find it in, like, have you seen that thing where they, like, blend up Wheaties or something and then they, like, put a magnet and it, like, half of it, like, goes up? And
oh, yeah.
That's fucked up, dude.
In our water, it's everywhere.
But these noble metals, I don't even think that's what it's called, but the ones that are more pure and therefore, like, of a higher vibration and clearer vibration, those are the ones that they keep away from us.
The more conductive ones.
Copper, gold, silver. Yeah.
Silver, the most conductive metal. And the metal of the divine feminine.
I've always loved silver more than gold myself. I just like it.
Well, gold is called a precious metal, but the only precious metal you have to mix less precious metal with to make it usable.
Why? Or what?
Because it's so soft.
Oh.
So that's why the Egyptian would like cover their dead in it.
Oh,
like pour
easy.
it. It was like easy to melt.
Which is weird that they use it in, like, space, supposedly. Like, this is really tender and easy to melt and, like, weak as shit. Let's throw it up into, like, the vacuum of the fucking fires of space. Like, okay.
It is. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But the atmosphere stuff is always interesting to me because I think it's the Anunnaki stuff, if you look into it, that when they first gave the atmosphere to Earth, they used gold. They, like, shot it into the atmosphere, and it made us a water planet, and it made it good for us to grow here. I think I'm not mixing two different total. They're like, that's not the Anunnaki, that's the Lyrians, or I don't know. I think, but the gold made the atmosphere, and that's why we all have to dig it out of the rivers now, because it was all tiny particles all in our atmosphere, slowly rain down, and then we have to get this gold all together. And then Elon Musk is talking about to create an atmosphere on Mars of putting 2 poles of cold with like gold in the atmosphere.
Really?
Yeah, it's just
wow. Interesting.
Back to Mars.
Yeah, and then it's like, so are we like little bacteria that are being grown in, like, this is our petri dish, and our whole purpose is to, like, generate whatever electricity or something, whatever we're doing here, and this whole thing is like a giant sort of battery, and that's why it's so, like, delicate, like how they have to play things all throughout history and keep our populations at certain ways and certain levels. Or I was just thinking about this today. I was like, I feel like we're cultured, right? Culture.
Totally. Even down to what cultures they sell where, what they put up against other cultures. Like we were just talking today about free will. Like you have to have your free will. But then what they've done so well is they've figured out a way to make it so that our free will is black or white. Our free will is McDonald's or Burger King. Our free will is Coke or Pepsi. It's like we don't, there's an infinite, no matter what they tell us one choice is, there's an infinite amount of other choices. But we're led to believe this, the dualism of it.
Yeah.
And with everything. And so, and it's like, people almost make you choose in an argument. Everything is broken down politically to pro-vax, anti-vax, pro-abortion, anti-abortion, pro-anti, pro-anti, pro-anti. What about if I don't even want to think about these things? What about if I don't even want these things in my sphere? I don't want to give them power, or I don't want to be anti it or pro it. I don't want any of it. And so that's where I think they've done this so well, even down to the Hillary and Trump of it all, even down to the Russia and America of it all. They've done this so, even to the watching Olympics, everybody watching Olympics with their country carrying their flag, and their athletes are all trying to if we do a little more Adderall here and a little more steroids here, and we'll fool the system here. It's like this whole game of everything trying to sneak out and cheat the other so we can give the illusion that we're winning in the space race. And it's so crazy. It's football games or something. It's like
it's so
these
limited
jerseys. Like we're all going to wear jerseys of our country and
paste like logos all over us.
We have the most gold medals.
Gold.
And it's so Greek. And it's so do you think it's weird that they changed the date of that ritual on us?
What,
the Summer Olympics?
They changed the date of the opening ceremony?
Well, wasn't it supposed to happen last year, but COVID canceled the Summer Olympics?
Oh, I didn't even pay attention. Did it? No, wow. Okay, then yeah. I wonder what it was going to be.
I know. I always wonder if it was that the good guys ritual or the bad guys ritual.
Yeah, like it was gonna actually unleash like the season of loving, and then so they had to shut it down and change it.
Yeah, they were like, this is the age of Aquarius Olympics. Nada.
Yeah. Wow. I really, this whole thing about imagination and controlling it, this false dichotomy, like it's this or it's that. And it's even beyond that. Like, I feel like they're like, okay, we'll choose Coke or Pepsi. And you're like, I don't want either. And now you've chosen rebellion. And like, now you're the outcast or whatever. And it's like, that's also
anti-soda.
Yeah. And that's like also a limiting choice. And I just remember like in high school where there'd be like people who were like, oh, I only wear Adidas. And I'm like, well, now you're just like a tool of Adidas. And then people would be like, oh, I will never wear Adidas. I'm like, well, you're still a tool of Adidas. Like, why are you defining yourself by Adidas? Like, just like break out of the mold, man. Do whatever you want. And same with when we were talking about space earlier. Like, they told us how to think of space, and now that's all we can think about space. Like, that our imaginations are so dwindled and limited and dulled and controlled. And I think that's like that is the energy, which is weirdly connected with the Neverending Story. That this literally creates like worlds, and it creates reality, and it manifests, and and in every single way we can imagine, it's been shut down. Limited.
Every way. They don't let teachers have imaginations to teach kids anymore. Like, they give them the same book, and then the teachers are almost forced into the bottleneck, but way before the kids ever. Every single one of my friends who used to be an amazing teacher or had the thought of being a teacher, I remember being young, and they were like, I'm going to figure out a way to make history so exciting for fucking kids. They're going to love it, and they're going to remember it, and I can't wait for it. And then they get there, and they're like, here's a binder. This is what you're allowed to teach. No, this is the exact pace you have to teach it. Like, every kid in the country on this date is learning this because you guys are all going to get these tests at this time. And it was like, what? I remember my history teacher used to be like, I'm starting at the back of the book because you guys never make it to the back of the book, so this time we're going to start at the back of the book.
So
what? Like little weird stuff of that. They took the individuality away from the teacher before they ever did the student, but the teacher never got to say anything about it because they were already into the system and tenured, and they better keep their mouth shut because the politics of that is a whole nother
Yeah, you get in big trouble if you teach something you're not supposed to teach in school, unless you're me and you just do whatever you want and be like, "Come get me, motherfucker!" It is. It's really depressing to think about that too. You're like leading the thoughts of all of these children, and you can't even have your own imagination or thoughts in place at all. And if I did, it wasn't just the students who were like, what the hell is this shit? This is not what we're supposed to be doing. So the other teachers were like, oh, you can't do it that way. That's not what we do. And I'm like, yeah, but that's what I'm doing. And they're like, yeah, but that's not what we do. And I'm like, well, what's the problem with it? They're reading and they're writing and they're doing shit, right? It's awesome. Like, yeah, that's not how we do it though. Like, it's just not what we do. They're like freaking out.
We. Like, there's no we about this.
Like, I'm over here. I don't know. You do whatever you want. Remember how
my dad would always say, what's this we shit? You got a turd in your pocket?
Who's in there with you?
Like, don't include me in your we.
Which is funny. I do it even with our like country and stuff. I'm like, we're doing this, and I do it like it's a psychological thing that I've trained myself to do for years and years and years, because people connect easier with you. And I'm not trying to manipulate anyone. I'm just like, look, we're all here together, right? Like, let's talk about all of this stuff. But then I catch myself doing it with like the US and saying we, and I'm like, why am I doing that to myself? I get that I live here, but like I am not that government, and I am not these politics.
We are warmongers. Our national debt. It's not my debt, bitch. I paid my motherfucking debt. I'm sorry you mismanaged your funds. You can go count that ticker in your own bedroom because I paid my bills. Like, I don't care about your national debt. It means nothing to me. Your national debt is like your population number ticker. I don't believe it.
Yeah, is it even
I don't
real?
believe it either.
Right.
It's just ways so you can keep taking this land from us, keep finiting us into things. Everyone is like, why are all the prices of all the properties going up? Because people are running for their lives from the cities. That's how many people are shoveled into those places.
Ugh.
That's why all your towns that you're feeling like, whoa, there's not a house anywhere. Yeah, that's just one floor of a high rise in Chicago that is running for their life. Like, it changes all social dynamics of all of Texas. That's just a tenth of the people in one county in Los Angeles that are fleeing. That changed all of the socioeconomic place of Texas.
Such a good point. I was just joking. I was like, shouldn't it like be physically, like the laws of physics demand that there cannot continue to be Californians appearing in other people's states? Like, this has been going on since I was a child in the 80s. Adults were talking about how California was ruining everything. And we're still talking about that. It's been 40 years. What's happening?
Do you remember that brief time they told us California has the third highest gross domestic blah, blah, blah in the world, and they are their own blah? It's the same as Elon Musk. California's finances are the same as Elon Musk. We pay them. They light their state on fire. We just shovel them money. They light their state on, and all that. They light their state on fire. We have all the proof now, and we just give them all this free money. Elon Musk is like, I'm going to create a space thing. We just give him all this money. I'm going to make an electric car. Here's all this money. Like, it's false billionaireism.
Yeah.
It's false. It's like these false people we're putting up to idolize and be like, this is the new richest man on earth.
I'm so glad you brought
That's
this
our
up.
money.
Because I was just thinking about this too. I was like, hold up. Like, Elon Musk is clearly exactly what you said. Just this created fucking billionaire. Like, all of a sudden and everybody's like, Elon Musk is God and he can shoot gold into Mars and make life or whatever, and like have cars fly in space without exploding from the vacuum and all this shit. What an amazing guy. Elon Musk is God. Who made Elon Musk out of nothing? And if they can do that, and then think of how the history books are going to look at this time. They're going to be like, oh, the captain of industry, Elon Musk came and made Mars have life, and tell this fucking fake ass story, and everyone's going to believe it. Who are the people we're looking back and we're like, okay, were the Rockefellers just nothing? Is this whole Illuminati
Richard
bloodline
Branson?
like nothing?
I feel like our whole life, all I've watched is Richard Branson fail. How is he still a billionaire?
Yeah.
Like, all I've watched forever is Richard Branson fail. I even feel like the space race thing, like him getting into low Earth orbit yesterday, I'm like, well, that's only taken 40 years. And they're like, well, at least he did it 40 years, the first private person. This is fake. He had Virgin Record. Remember all those Virgin Record stores?
And shit, yeah.
And they all shut down. Like, what? I don't know. I just think the whole thing is like these same people, like, Bezos, and all their wives splitting up from them. Okay, I'm right with your tax havens and your weird things. It's like bankruptcy for a company. We'll put all the loss on one side, including the creepy shit and all the eugenic stuff. We'll shovel that all over to Bill Gates. We'll leave Melinda here with all the cash. She can still raise the kids. And Bill will still be over there too when all this is done.
Kevin Klein, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kevin and Bill.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's all fake. And then, I mean, I know, like, more and more I look at history and I'm like, fake, fake, fake. Like, what's even real? Who fucking knows where we came from? Or, like, who created this realm? Or what the fuck happened? Like, maybe even only, like, 100 years ago, not even that long ago. Who knows what the hell's going on? But, like, for some reason it took me until today to question whether or not the 13 Illuminati bloodline families are even a fucking thing. If that's even real. If Rothschilds are even real. Or if that's just a fucking other story. I'm like, none of this shit, none of these people matter. It's all just little illusions and created, like, puppets and marionettes to make us be like, look at what's happening. Like, and again, it's like the imagination is captured. We're like, well, we're powerless. These people have been running the show for thousands of years. Like, all I can do is till my garden and make a potato or something, you know?
David Icke, like, he's the same as Alex Jones. And they're just revelation of the method to release their karma. They tell us exactly what they're doing. But there's a reason some people, if you're a naturopath doctor in 2018 that said you could cure cancer by blank, you were murdered.
You're dead.
But David Icke has truth and is still just allowed to hold court. I don't believe that exists. I don't believe that exists. I just don't believe in that world. Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, and Robin Williams, and Chris Cornell, and blah, 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 all red scarfed for just bleeping about child trafficking and the dangers of Hollywood. But people like Corey Feldman
just blah, blah,
are
blah,
saved.
blah, blah.
Why?
Yeah.
I just don't believe it. I don't believe that stuff.
Yeah, because people are like, oh, some people are protected by spiritual forces. I'm like, I actually agree with that, but I don't think that that's a very good, that's a shitty explanation for what you're describing right here. Like, it's just lazy. It's just too easy. Like, that's not, like, what, those other people didn't have any? Like, Robin Williams was just a piece of shit, and God was like, fuck you. Like, what do you mean? I don't know.
Or
and David Icke isn't? Like, huh?
Embassies, there's magic there. Why? Just think of an embassy. It's a building that's allowed to exist anywhere in the world that you are allowed to claim, and it has a magic and a fence around it that if you are anywhere in the world and you're running to your embassy and you make it inside the gate, like, you're free. You're like, shut the gate. I'm in the embassy. There's something to that. Or look at everyone in the world, Julian Assange and all the shit going on with Julian Assange, but he was safe in the embassy.
Yeah. He couldn't be touched there. It's true. I was just watching, like, I don't know, The Expanse or whatever, and there's a scene like that. There's, like, Martian is, like, running to get to the, like, Earth line. There's literally, like, a line where it's, like, Martian, Earth, and, like, she, like, barely slides across, and all these people who were going to shoot her just stop, and they're like, oh, we can't shoot her now. I'm like, what? What?
She grabs under and reaches for her Indiana Jones hat.
Yeah.
So, like, slide. She just made it to the embassy.
And, like, that is this magical game. But this is, like, how children play, right? Kids are like, here's the rules. Here's the rules. If you touch this, you're safe. And if you do that, you're not. And everybody plays by the rules. And the people who don't are, like, quickly kicked out of the game. So, like, clearly we're all just playing a game here. Well, I don't know if I like this game. I mean, it's kind of fun. I like living. But it's a weird game. Not sure if I want to keep playing this game. Maybe we need to change the rules.
Yes, or just stop abiding by theirs.
And
we all just, let's go to the, did you know there's an art in an embassy rule? Like, there's this thing you can look up, art in the embassy, and they can pass art anywhere around the world through these embassies, and it never has to go through any kind of customs. To me, I just think human trafficking.
Child trafficking, yeah. Yeah.
It made me laugh. I'm sorry it made me laugh, but I'm just like, we're in the ludicrous world where no one cares. It's still always been about child trafficking, but it's like, no matter what you talk about, everything leads back where they're, Chaney, why are you always talking about child trafficking? Because that's what all this is still about to me. All this, all the lockdown, the mask, the vaccines, the Hillary Clintons, the Hades, the Trumps, the Bidens, still human trafficking.
Yeah, and that's the part that we know for sure is real because of how many, like, Kids
The
go
border
missing.
walls, the fucking internment camps, the slavery, the cotton picking. It's all human trafficking. It's all, and what I keep saying this to people because I think cotton picking is a romantic idea of what they were making slaves do. Yeah, because it's these same sick people that are doing these same sick rituals, and it's the same dirty 1% that's been running the whole show. It wasn't all of Southerners had slaves and all the Northerners had indentured servitudes.
Yeah.
No, it was the 1% had both those things.
Yeah. They had whatever people would put up with. They're like, no, we won't put up with slavery, but indentured servitude we can do. That makes sense to us. Like, but you're right. It's still slavery, and they still will find whatever way they can to keep it going. And it's still going today. I was wondering about this today too. I was like, okay, so if you were like, you know, the whole magical agreement contract based thing, is there a way that you could be like in trouble and like charged with something and then not end up going to jail because you like didn't agree to it or you didn't go along with it, or there's some like word you used or like way that you just like held yourself that, and I know that's part of what the sovereignty movement is all about, but I'm getting like even more esoteric with it. Like, is there a moment where you're like, don't even say guilty or not guilty or something? Do you know what I mean? Like, what I want to know those
There is
tricks.
and even the sovereignty rule, I hear about it, or even maritime law, I hear about it, or even natural law, I hear about, or even universal law, I hear about. Shut up. No, that's somebody's writing of
will.
something.
Yeah.
It's all free will, and your free will is different than mine, and all those things are a binary term of like people need to stop worrying about their like my gender isn't binary. They need to start making their God non-binary. Like stop with it.
Yourself.
All those laws. It's just like, no, I don't want to be this. I'm going to be sovereign. And that's the thing. But then that has all these set of laws. Now I have to go and be like, I'm a sovereign citizen and here's the rules of this. No, I'm not. I'm going to abide by maritime law. That's the law of the ocean. Who says that law? Who said that? And now, no, I'm going to abide by natural law. Who first wrote that? What philosopher first wrote down natural law? And then universal laws. This new woo-woo thing of this like, thou shalt not kill. Maybe, but what about if somebody rapes your child?
Gonna kill
Like,
him.
I don't know. So I don't know. I think it's totally fluid, and I think it's totally by the moment. And I think maybe even I think you can also repent. I think you can change.
Yeah.
I think you can have hot where you're just like, holy shit, that was a crime of passion. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in any of these things. I think they're all written by somebody who fucking touched little kids at some point. Every single one of these religions.
And you're agreeing to it then, like we've been talking about. You now have this like contract, like I'm agreeing to natural law. Like, well then whoever created that, did they own you? Are you in their game now? Are you the piece on their like chessboard or whatever? And like, is that what you want? And like maybe it's convenient. I don't know. Do whatever you want. But I like my whole life I've had this concept deeply embedded in me, even before I had like words for it, which is like, okay, like to play, it's just like we were talking about, like I'm gonna play this game with you and I get that there's these rules in this game, and so I'm gonna adopt those rules for this time, but if at any time I don't want to play this game anymore, I'm just not going to, and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it because I'm free. Freedom is my favorite word. Free will is the only thing that I really think is true, like you're talking about. And so I don't think any of this shit is binding at all, like you said. I think you can just be like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that one anymore. I was, and now I'm not. Right?
I think no in the everybody always talks about like the cool parts of spiritual awakening or the beautiful white parts of spiritual awakening, but I think no and I don't give a fuck are two important parts of your spiritual awakening. Saying no, being like, this doesn't feel good to me. Like whether it's going a place with or hanging out with the same person that you're like, I'm over this. This is every time I hang out with this person, it's just a rinse of everything about my energy. It doesn't matter what I say, what I do. This person doesn't want to change a thing. It's okay to say, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Or we can still do this, but it's going to be under my rules now.
Yeah.
Which are setting your boundaries because you don't give a fuck.
Yeah. I recently just kind of cut off a person like that who's been my friend for many, many, many years because I was like, oh, you have rules about when I can share my emotion And that doesn't fly with me. So we're not friends now, which is cool. I'm fine. It was sad for half a day. And now I'm like, yeah, we're both going to be better off because I don't play by your rules. You're not going to like that. I'm not going to like that. We need to do exactly what we want. But there's people who are like, oh, you were so mean to that person. Or like, why did you treat that person like that? And I'm like, well, what about the many years of interactions with that person that you've never seen? Like, all you saw was this one, and then you decided that it meant that, like, I was mean or that I'm, like, too harsh or something. When you tally all that up, like, you don't know that you wouldn't do the exact same thing. You know, you can't, like, look from the outside and see someone else's boundaries and understand them appropriately unless you're going to have this conversation with them. Like, okay, what led to this? Why'd you choose that? Like, how is this the thing that you're doing? That's its own game with all its own rules, I guess.
Will you become your own friend at some point and you're like, this is unacceptable. I wouldn't let somebody treat my friend like this. And I'm over you treating me like this. And it's okay. You're just setting your bar higher. It doesn't mean that person's never going to be back. It's just they know now that when they come back, they have to hit that bar.
Yeah.
And if they're lucky, your bar isn't 10 times higher than that when they come back.
By the time, yeah.
Yeah, you're not being weighed down by their sorry ass.
Yeah. Well, and I'm like, you know, you can love someone too from afar and be like, if you like need something, like, here I am. But we're just not like, there's no reason for us to interact much. You know,
I almost feel like some of these guilt relationships, they're like past lifetime things.
Yeah.
They're like something like we're regurgitating over and over again
Until
to either try to heal it or wake ourselves up to the trauma of it or some kind of control because of something we were out of control at some point. But I also think certain energies just travel with you through lifetimes. And some of them aren't good energies. Some of them, like, it's like every lifetime you're always this dude, like somewhere, like you've killed each other in lifetimes. You've, and it's like, Jesus, that's my dad this lifetime. No, yeah. But some people do have that where they're like, no, well, my mom, killed me in 2 lifetimes, or my grandmother and me we've been like across each other in battlefields, and it's just like, wow, isn't it crazy that some of these souls and energies just balance each other in a way like, like the black hole.
Yeah. And it's good. Like, then you learn eventually, like, okay, well, if I make this boundary, like, I don't have to have that relationship anymore, that style, or like, I don't have to let someone murder me again or whatever, because I'll, earlier than I ever have before, put down some, like, walls and be like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Like, bye-bye. And then you get to experience not going along with that, But it's still, like, it's interesting because if that's how it's going and you're, like, the same soul over and over again and learning to make this boundary or learning to make this choice or learning to accept certain things or whatever to change, you're doing it with this very safe person, right? Whether they killed you before or are doing it in this life or not, you're like, you've, like, agreed to do this. It's like, let's play this out. Let's see where we can get to in this time.
Have you ever, have you ever seen the movie Wisdom? It's with, Demi Moore and like Emilio Estevez. It's also, I think, similar. It might be the story of like Billy the Kid. I think Billy the Kid was the one that rode around to banks and like lit the mortgages and debt on fire.
What a badass.
So people like loved him. Yeah. I think it was him. There was one of those like cowboy people. Sometimes I wonder that I hear people talk about the Akashic record and I'm like, is the Akashic record weighing us down?
Yeah, like, can we go burn it and just like... Seriously. I hear people talk about like moving things in the Akashic record and like, oh, I took that book and I put it somewhere else and now things are different. I'm like, well, if we can do that, like, what can we do?
I know. And so then I said, Akashic. And somebody said, who do you think you are? One of my friends was like, who do you think you are? Just being like, the Akashic record.
Just so
like,
heavy.
Yeah, it just seems like, what if none of us, like, if all of our past lives were gone? All of it, all the trauma, whatever. So you'd forget some skills. We'd learn it all from each other. Right now, this lifetime, what if it was all just vanquished? It's like the library. It seems like the Library of Alexandria of like emotions and feelings or something.
Well,
it's so intense.
Yeah. It's a really interesting thought. I bet when you're saying that, I'm like picturing us all just like turning into like joyous, happy, just like souls, like with no fucking fear or like sadness, and like it'd be almost like that's actually in the Neverending Story too. There's like this group that he creates of like just the happiest, like go luckiest like beings ever, but they're also therefore like never get shit done, so they're actually suffering all the time because they can't organize and they don't even know what they're doing. They have no purpose. They just laugh and like tell jokes and like roll around through the earth, and it's like its own special kind of torture. So I think about things like that too, where I'm like, what if it was suddenly different like this, or what if you had none of that, or like what if all of this suddenly changed? And I'm like, the consequences might be beyond what we imagine, and they might be negative. We might be actually really glad that things are like exactly how they
Orderly.
are. Yeah.
It's all about, we thrive in chaos because we organize it.
I'm like, I actually feel like I thrive in chaos. I'm like, yes, bring all of the change, haha, because I'm like, what's gonna happen now? Like, this is a thing we don't know yet. Like, this is the most exciting that life can get, is when you don't know a thing, right? Like, the movie's boring if you know the ending. Like, I want to not know. I don't want to see what happens. So I'm like, I thrive in it. It's like my favorite.
So are you kind of excited that we're alive to live through the New World Order? Like, where it's like, it's been built up. You know, we've seen it in black and white movies, Marilyn Monroe saying, Mr. President, like all this New World Order build up, like, and now we're here and we're like grown folk.
Yeah.
And we get to be like, whoa, we're living in the New World Order.
Look at this. What is this all about? I do kind of. I've said that for a long time, actually. Like, even in The Matrix came out and stuff, and people were like, dude, what if it is? What if we're living in the Matrix? I was like, cool. Then, like, we'll figure out how to get out of it. It'll be rad. Like, who cares? Nothing really has changed.
That's why I think Joe Rogan wanted to sell float tanks and DMT to everyone, because that is exactly how they'd get us to plug into the pink ooze of the Matrix.
Dude, that's really good call.
They'd shoot us up with DMT and plug us in, and we'd sit back in the ooze.
Can you imagine though, being him, if that's what he's doing, like being him and making that choice? Like, yeah, I'll sell people fucking just fully out into like hell. That's fine. Like, I'll just do that.
Don't you? It's that power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Power is a really tricky thing.
And I think, like, they're probably like, oh, we'll kill your kid slowly. And you're like, well, then I can't. I have to. But I always like to think I'd be like, fuck you. You're not allowed to kill me or my kid. And they might do it anyway. But that I didn't agree to either, right? Like, I didn't do the thing they wanted, and I also didn't agree to them, like, killing my kid. I don't know.
Or if you were completely bred, like if Joe Rogan was bred to be Joe Rogan. There was never any other option. He was bred to be this guy.
Like MK Ultra style, like conditioning, and like, this is who you are. This is your role.
Yeah. They lack empathy altogether. That's how you become the head of a company that you could like release oil into the Everglades and you don't care because you don't have any empathy at all. I think it's bred out. It's in their bloodline. I think that it's why they would want to make it, incest cool for like royal bloodlines, because there's something that to get to the top of the pyramid and to constantly shovel down shit, you have to see humans as cattle. You have to see yourself as better than them.
Yeah.
In a way that you're disassociated. And look at how so many humans, they can't even be mean to an animal. Like, so many humans feel bad in the smallest scale, but imagine being even disassociated from humans.
It's so interesting.
Or get off on it, like the whole opposite. That's what I think. I think they get off on the opposite stuff. Like, what we think is beautiful would make them disgusted, and what would make us never be able to sleep again is the stuff they want art on their walls.
Yeah. Yeah, like literally, like the Podestas. I'm like, that's what you chose to put in your home, you fucking sicko. Like, what the fuck? That's the type of shit too, where I'm like, what, you don't see this? Like, there's a picture. He's standing next to it. It's in his home. God damn it. But this is the interesting thing between psychopaths and sociopaths. Psychopaths, supposedly, right? If this is how things are, psychopaths have literally no ability to have any compassion at all or any empathy at all. They cannot. It is not something they can do. Sociopaths have just been so used to cutting that part off and ignoring it and avoiding it and smashing it down that they have very little ability left to connect with it, but it technically still exists. And they can still feel it. So it's interesting that like there's these people who have been like forced into that, but even then it's not dead, you know? So it's like, is this literally a different species? Or is there actually something in humanity that allows for the creation of a being that is still human technically, but also cannot literally feel?
Or could it be a high, like how when you're the perfect meditation or the perfect ayahuasca trip, or when you're communing with the right people, or you have all those God experiences that give you that utmost high where you're like, oh my God, I'm attached to source right now. And you're manic, but it's like this love manic and everyone around you is love manic. Don't you think the opposite of that exists?
Yeah.
And it must be just as addictive, like where they're like in it, like whatever the fear and bludgeoning and blood, and like I really just picture like hyenas like chewing at flesh. Like it's something so different than human. It's so different than us, and they keep trying to convince us that like, well, that's human nature. It's human nature to take advantage. It's human nature to do this shitty thing. It's human nature. But I'm like, I don't think it is at all. I think human nature always impresses. Human nature is like, did that person just drop themselves into a raging wild river to save a baby calf for no, is that their calf? No.
Just a random one.
Yeah, just like, no, they're just like, we're a person fighting for their own life driving home. And then they were like, I can't watch this happen. But also something usually in those lifesavers, they're protected in that moment. It's a spell. Like you can do this right now.
Yeah.
You can run into that building and get those kids and you're not going to get burnt at all.
Because you're just in that vision of it. You're like, this is what's going to happen right now. There's no doubt. There's not even time to doubt, right? The doubt and fear is like truly the killer of
Mom, you can lift that car off your kid.
Yeah.
Think of how many stories we've all heard about that mom like lifting shit. Like, yeah, that's light as a feather, stiff as a board shit.
Yeah.
But you just did it instantly.
It's so rad. I really like, I've seen so many examples of that in my own life, and I just like, but I also don't know how to purposely do it, right? Like, how do you purposely get yourself to the point where you're so in the moment and so believe that this thing's going to happen that it happens? I can only do it on accident. I've never done it on purpose.
There's no other option probably in the time.
Yeah, like you have
it has to be real.
I love that.
In that moment, it has to be real.
What's really sickly fascinating to me too, and I think probably true, unfortunately, in me, I'd love to be wrong on this, but that there actually has to be like psychopaths, and there has to be people who like revel in just like ripping each other's flesh apart and like destroying lives and torture and stuff for some reason. Like there's like a purpose it serves, or like a void that it fills, or do you know what I mean? Like that it's created like by effect and the cause exists to create it. It's not like an unnatural perversion. It's just like how mold like eats shit. It like breaks it down. Like, and mold isn't everywhere all the time, but it's there when you need it to be, and it actually needs to happen that it breaks that shit down. Like, I hate thinking that, but I just wonder if it's
like
true.
The Ghost in the Darkness, those two lions, that they were the two male lions that hunted together. I think they were, I always get it wrong, where they were building the railroad across, I don't know why I want to say India, but it might have been Africa. I think it was Africa. But they were building a railroad, and these two lions were coming and eating all the workers every night. And they nicknamed the lions the Ghost in the Darkness. And even when you see the person, the whole story is all wrapped up to make a hero out of some white dude, probably.
Yeah.
But no male lions would ever normally hunt like this. It was all very against male lion nature, I guess. But it's like you would say that, were they psychopaths, or were they like an energy that didn't want this railroad metal laying across Africa, or metal laying across, think of that too. I'm having my own moment of statues and bullets and railroad lines.
Yeah. Just connecting like every major place that we've been told is major for whatever reason.
All by heavy metals, like real metal.
Yeah, what is it? Is it steel?
I don't know, maybe steel and iron.
Yeah.
I have one of those nails somewhere somewhere in my life. I don't know when the last time I seen it. I looked around like it was going to appear.
Where is this?
I know. Yeah. Those stakes. Yeah,
Those always hold
railroads.
like so much power too, right? We have like the golden one that's like the last one that's put in, and like we have like people like wear them like to like intimidate, or they'll like frame them on their wall. It's
The
interesting.
golden one that would connect the
Yeah,
conductivity of it.
dude. And
Yeah.
somebody too, I wish I had a better memory, but someone recently was talking about too how railways were possibly laid over ley lines. So there's like actual energy running the, underground, or like the waterways or the telluric currents or whatever. And then over that, we have
Mm.
this structure that's like harnessing that. And it's another one of those things like when you're on a rail, most of the time, I would say if you're on a train, you're probably like excited. There's emotion also being like generated in it. Or maybe you're stressed out and terrified and you're like,
It is.
yikes.
A train's a whole interesting, even like the Disney, the monorails, like the magnetism, how we can just go whatever speed the metal can take if we can magnetize it. Like you want to go 1,000 miles an hour? Done. We can just easy. Like, but and then all these other rails, and no matter what with it seems like such an archaic kind of system, but then it also seems like what's better than a railway system? You don't need any gas.
Yeah.
Like you're just
Especially if
yeah.
you do the magnetic version, you just need that initial, like, and then it's just like off.
Done. Then you're just turning the magnets on in front of it.
Speaking of that, remember, let's mention Elon Musk for the fourth time this episode and go back to the Hyperloop. Do you remember when that was the big deal?
The Hyperloop.
Yeah, he was going to build this, like,
Oh,
underground.
underground
Yeah.
with Alice. Wait, Alice was the boring company. That was his name. Here's a whole weird
Oh,
thing. Like the Alice in Wonderland of it all.
wow.
Boring was his other company that is the same time as Tesla and SpaceX.
Oh, yeah.
And you can look up all those big underground drudging machines, which is all they are, is tunnel diggers for underground, and they're huge. And I believe his number one first build that he did, his nickname was Alice. And yeah, that's the Hyperloop.
Ah.
That's what he's using to build it.
So, like, they just dropped it. They were like, the Hyperloop, it's gonna change the world. You're gonna be able to get from like Seattle to like Paris in an hour or whatever. And you're like, geez, like that'd be rad. Like kind of cool, but like, holy crap, how long is this gonna take? And in Seattle they actually did this horrifying project that everyone hated, but we have the viaduct and blah blah. They redid a road, but they put it underground, and so they had bore this tunnel. They got one of those. I don't know if it's his digging machine, but they got this giant digging machine. They named it or whatever, christened it, and it just like fucked up all the time. Like it never did what it was supposed to. It was always broken down. They kept having to fix it and all this shit. And I'm like, well, this is a shit show. And this lasted way longer than it was supposed to. It was a traffic nightmare. Blah blah blah. If that's how hard it is to build this one little stretch of highway, I don't know if we're ever going to have a Hyperloop from here to there. But I also wonder if the reason it got kind of just like, yeah, we're just never going to talk about that again is because they already have had shit like that for who knows how long. And they don't really want people to discover that by building their own.
Or do you think they were just going to say like, hey, look what we're doing? And at the same time, everybody online was like, deep underground military bases underneath Hefner's house. Look at these tunnels, kid tunnels, that they had to be like, let's stop talking about the tunnels. Because
Yeah.
remember when Elon was going to rescue those kids in like Thailand in that deep tunnel
Yeah.
and he called the dude a pedophile?
Oh, did he?
Yeah, they like got in a fight because the government was like, "We're good, Elon. Like,
Don't worry.
thanks
We
for
want
yeah,
these
like
kids trapped here.
yeah, something weird was going on. They were like, "We don't need you to make a commercial about this. We're trying to save lives or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, what is this guy a pedophile?" Like and it was like, I forgot about that until just this moment. But it was.
I wonder like where that was in the timeline.
A kid
too.
why can you imagine if you're in school, you're a teacher in school, and one teacher took all the class to an underground cave in like there's something so off with that whole thing.
Yeah, I thought it was like a soccer team or something. But even then, especially then, like why? And where are the parents like, yeah, take my kid underground. It's cool. Like we'll see you next Wednesday. It's just weird.
So bizarre. And how Elon Musk got involved in it. It's always trying to Elon Musk hero. Here comes Elon with the space race. I actually think that while we're all looking at SpaceX and these rockets, they're doing that shit below now. That's exactly what's going on.
That's a great.
We're all looking up all the time.
Great point. They're like, look up, and then they're like, haha. You know what? My friend the other night had this crazy, and it's, all these different people experience the same thing, but he was telling me that there was all these booms and lights, and then like helicopters and UFOs both were converging on where the booms and the lights were coming from, and no one ever explained what happened. And I was like, well, what? Wait, the helicopters and the UFOs were both converging, so that brings in like a third. So why is there actually like an intelligence that's UFOs and an intelligence that's our helicopters, and then a third intelligence that's making booms and lights? And what would the third intelligence be? Or like, what the hell would that even be? It was just weird. I always think of them as like separate, different, opposed, whatever, and to like have them both going, no matter what they are, humans, cyborgs, aliens, who cares? Have them both going to converge on this. Like, what would that be?
Isn't it? I think there's old German art that represents a battle in the sky where it's like cigar shaped things and circular shaped things. I want to say it's like art from the 1500s or something. That was in the paper, like where they used to print one paper and it would hang in the town. And they were like, this crazy battle over Nuremberg or something. But I do think it was in Germany somewhere.
Oh, wow.
And it's some old art you can find. And there's huge, where if there's one alien race, there's got to be an infinite amount.
Yeah.
I'm more of a portal person. I think they're just all right, like whoop, there.
I'm an interdimensional portal person myself too. It just makes way more sense given all the shit. But that's what I'm saying. Like maybe it's both. Maybe there is actually an extraterrestrial force that did show up, and the portal beings and the like governments were like, we both have an interest in stopping that or something.
Like the USOs, the Atlantis of it all, they shot out of the ocean and were like, no way, not here.
Not gonna happen. This is our cattle, please.
Well, then you think like, are we just the children, like the mutts of a whole bunch of starseeds?
That'd be awesome.
Like they all have invested interest in us.
Like all these different races are kind of real and humanoid, and then like some made like Asia, and some made Africa, and some made like Europe or whatever. And
we all have different special powers, but then they're battling against each other as well with us, like their own egos. See, it's even in alien worlds, we're gonna have to deal with like our whole big ego. There's like a chess game of it all still.
They're like, let's be civil. We're not going to fight each other, but we're going to go and play this game on this weird-ass dimension, and we're going to make all these races and have them fight each other. Like, god damn, is this really simpler?
Like Risk. Or like Antarctica. We all still can't go to Antarctica. We all agree on that collectively as a planet.
Yeah.
That we will shoot each other up in missiles, but let's not go here or ruin it.
No one has ever been able to successfully explain that to me. This is what gives me like the most credence in the flat earth thing, because the ice wall makes the most sense to me. Although that doesn't have to be flat earth. It could just be like a super large globe and we're just like walled in here in this little section of it. But that I have no better explanation for Antarctica.
The puddle theory.
Yeah.
That's kind of the one that where it's like there's an ice wall, but there might be a whole bunch of other ice, like puddles with land masses in them.
Yeah.
That if we could just go over these little ice walls. But then there's the whole story of the guy who tried to like circumnavigate Antarctica, and it took him like 3 years and 60,000 miles. Like some absurd amount of time. Yeah, and he ended up going around all the continents and all this stuff. Like people that have actually tried to do it. And I guess they all could be real.
Yeah. Like it could be really, really a lot bigger and still be flat. It could be like way, way beyond Antarctica and bigger and still be a globe. Like I still don't know the shape.
I'm like, I don't really care about your shape, but you're not taking away my Agartha.
Yeah. God damn it.
I like the idea too. I just heard we were talking about like what if stars are just us looking out volcanic openings. Like we are in Agartha right now.
That's like the pinpoints of, that's cool.
And that's why they never change, because they're, I don't know. Cool. We have no idea. No. And then here's my fanciful idea. If we could take the white walls are just what haven't been rendered yet. And so we're not allowed to go to the edge because it's easier to keep us entrapped. If they can keep closing in what we believe in, then it's easier to control us. But if we could take like kids, or sometimes I wonder like, special needs kids, like kids that are not even what we call normal at all, and if they could render like what was not us, not broken us with our third dimensional, like, oh, and I hope there'll be nice roads with no potholes. Fuck that noise. Like, let people that have such an imagination, like such a creativity, let them go to the edge and render it. And then it like lays out before us like a video game.
I love this. I feel like that's what the Nazis were actually trying to do down there. They're like, come on, we're gonna like really make this happen. We're gonna make a whole new land, and they did it. And they like made this like wonderland, and the world had to be like, all right, we can never let this out. Like, let's make the Nazis seem like the worst butchers and the most evil people in the world, so no one ever looks into like what they maybe actually accomplished.
Well, it's kind of crazy that one tiny little place like Germany almost took over the whole world
Twice.
That is
That's
insane.
fucked up.
It's so insane to think about. That's like California. I mean, I guess California kind of did
Yeah, true.
take over the whole world.
actually
Hollywood won. Hollywood won.
Yeah.
Let's all be real.
Hollywood won World War III.
I know. Well, they did. I have never seen such a lack of faith in Hollywood as I do right now,
Yeah.
regardless of what side. Tom Hanks couldn't have a winning hit movie on his hands if he were to come out as another Mr. Rogers too. Like, no one is buying it. It's like all the people that used to carry that magic, no one buys it anymore.
It gives me hope. But I also hope that people find somewhere else to create their own imagination from and create their own reality through, because which I guess is why it's so cool that, like, you know, you have your show and I have my show and people are doing this type of stuff. And maybe we'll get even more imaginative for what that all can look like. But because we have to, right? I think we have to like reignite imagination and relearn that tool. I think it's like the most powerful tool we have, and that's why they attack it so much.
It heals your inner child. To sit with your adult friends and let your imaginations roll and laugh until you cry because you're just so stupid and just being stupid. It really heals your inner child. And it also, when you're allowing yourself to be so authentic and you have people around you that they're like, oh, I love your stupidity right now and your authenticity, and you're bouncing off of each other. That is brilliant. That's what you used to do when you were a little kid. We could all take a stick and have a sword fight with it and go on a hunt with it and be zookeepers and lion tamers and with just a stick.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think we need to kind of get back into.
Yeah.
The computer and all the flat screens and the video games are taking away anything you see. We created that. Anything you see, even the false flags, they can't do it. The lizards can't create anything. Some 9-year-old is like, what if we flew planes into buildings? And the lizards were like,
Yeah.
like, I know. I think we create everything. I think we're kind of brilliant, but I think that's why mushrooms are so great, because you play with your friends.
Yeah, and you're like, what if this? Like, whoa.
Yeah, like, I see it too. This is awesome. Like, everyone's sitting around talking about their health and mortgages and bills and getting sick and dying and being in debt and paying for things and jobs and losing jobs. And it's just like garbage, garbage, garbage. When we were little kids, we would sit around and watch parents talk about this and be like, ugh,
why do you do
I
this?
never want to be an adult.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to discuss this bullshit with our friends. This is not, if you have a good tip for somebody, if you're like, hey girl, good interest rate on that fucking car today, cool, share that if I'm asking, but please do not bore me.
Yeah.
Like, don't bore me. Like, let's have a fun, let's be kids again.
I can't even handle it anymore. Like, I don't know, meetings were the worst too, where I'm like, oh my God, we're all gonna sit here for an hour and just like be this tiny and limited and do nothing at all. Like, this is insanely torturous.
And just hear each other talk. We're all just hearing each other. I just want
And
to
it's
put
all
my hand
fake.
across your face.
Yeah.
Like, while you're talking, you're like, okay, you guys, so your reports this month, and we need your numbers to be, and I just slide my hand down your face
Yeah.
while you're talking. I open up my cheese sandwich and then just throw my cheese slice at your face.
Oh, have you heard of this idea that, and that would be the best possible response, but have you heard of this idea that the spots in the moon, like the eyes and the mouth, or whatever, the man or the bunny ears or whatever, are actually reflections of the land mass, because the moon is plasma and it reflects water better than it does land. And so you can make the accurate map of the Earth using those. And if you do that, there's a hidden mass in the Pacific.
Huh, that's Lemuria.
Yeah, maybe. I just saw like this tiniest blip of it on John Levi's, one of his recent things, and I was like, I've never heard that before. I love this, and now I want to know more about it.
I have never heard that. It's kind of blowing. I'm picturing the bunny now. I'm like a person that sees the upside down bunny. And the crazy part would be that would be a flat earth thing because we only see one side of the moon the entire time.
Yeah.
But it would be so weird that you see the same moon in Australia as you do America, the same face. So its reflection would be everything always.
Yeah.
And that's kind of mind blowing.
Like unchanging. You have to go look at the map after this and check it out because you like can see how like, yeah, that does kind of look like it could be like North America. You know, we have all these different projections and things get stretched and warped and whatever, but like that could be similar to the shape we're told it is, and this could be like Africa and whatever, and like weird. And then there's like other land masses. You're like, huh. So it's pretty random, but that's fast. I like that. I love ideas that I've never heard before, so it's my favorite newest thing.
And the moon's fucked up. Like, there's nothing scientific sense that they can make of the moon.
Yeah.
They literally tell us the moon's there because a rogue planet hit us twice.
And, like, broke it off of us, right?
Yeah, the first time it hit us, it broke it off. And then the second time it hit us, it hit it into a perfect orbit, not to be sucked into Earth or not to be sucked out toward the sun.
Like, that's pretty perfect. And then that it's, like, all helium-3, allegedly, or whatever. Like, well, if it came from here, how did it get to be all that? Is that what happens?
Or how are we all not talking about this rogue planet?
Yeah, like, what is this rogue planet?
Like, do we have to worry about this thing again?
Well, it was a crystal planet. It was all crystals and unicorns 100% of the time. There was no variation in it, and it was amazing.
Well, that's a Nibiru.
Is Nibiru supposed to be crystal?
I have no idea.
Oh.
I know I haven't had all the starseed talk and Sirius talk and stuff. I haven't heard anyone Nibiru in a while.
True. Planet X, Nibiru, like it just like was gone.
We're bringing it back into the ether right now.
Yeah,
watch how quickly we're going to cease to post about it. You're going to be texting me for the next week like, shut the fuck up. Look at Nibiru again.
Seriously. Well, I've had that feeling like so many times in my life where I'm like, I swear to fucking God, I like have an idea and I'm like, whoa, and I think about it for a while and I try to tell people about it and a lot of times they're like, what? Huh? Or like they just like don't care, or they're like, oh, but they like clearly like don't really get it. And then like within like a month or a year, suddenly everybody's talking about it and I'm like, I fucking said it. Nobody fucking cared. Like, why?
I know, this was my idea. And then you're like,
and
is that my ego?
It's my ego. But I also then was like, dude, I think there's like a timeline thing. Like, ideas come into whoever, because I'm sure everyone's had that experience. Ideas come in and they're the ones like who were in the right time at the right place to just like receive it and be like, whoa, this idea, right? And then like no one else was, so they can't really even express it, but like slowly by trying to tell people, it like starts to kind of get out there until somebody gets it who can like translate it better and give it to everyone at once, and then that's just like the way shit goes. But it's never like the same person every time.
Yeah, where you're like, that's my $1 million idea I saw in the store. That's my $1 million idea. Yeah. Like you probably got it the same exact time they got it. They just ran with it.
Maybe, or like it took time to come out into the mass consciousness. Like it can't just come all at once. Like it has to have like percolation. But it's a different route every time. Like I think everyone's had that experience where they're like, I started that trend, or like I said that word first, or like, you know, any of those things, but they didn't get the credit, or nobody noticed, or nobody heard it or saw it or thought it was cool at the time. You know, the first person to put on backward jeans, people were like, you're fucking dumb. And then all of a sudden, like, Milli Vanilli did it, and it was like amazing. Or I'm probably mixing people.
Crisscross.
Thank you, crisscross. I'm such an asshole. Anyway.
It was the same time, similar time frame. And you were a kid. You were such a baby.
That's true.
You were busy watching The Never-Ending Story. You weren't jump. Crisscross will make you jump. Daddy Mac will make you.
This is the other thing. I'm like, why do we have the same songs for like 40 years and nobody can listen to different songs? We have to listen to the same songs we've been listening to forever.
That's part of the Tom Hanks conspiracy. Everything goes back to the Tom Hanks movies for me. I was thinking when you were talking like Sully, like I just don't believe that guy landed that plane in the river and Tom Hanks played him. There's more to that story. There, like Captain Phillips, That Thing You Do was all Tom Hanks wrote that. You doing that thing you do. And then they did a whole movie about how they could take a song, pick whoever they wanted, make them famous and make them unfamous, just like that. And that's what the whole movie is about. And it's that same that there's that special like equation of a pop song that it's all every pop song throughout history is all the same, and that's exactly what that garbage song is. It's just that same pop song. So yeah, the Tom Hanks conspiracy, That Thing You Do.
That's interesting. They just have to rub it in how well they can control us and how much we'll be like, I love this. I love this song. This song is me. This is like the identity thing. They're like, well, I like pink and I like triangles and I'm so random and my hair is like this because that's who I am and this is my style. I wear Adidas and I'm bisexual and like whatever. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
all of that is so boring. Who cares? Once you're past middle school, no longer does anyone care what all your lists of identity things are. Like, it's just, who cares? Shut up, move on. Get a life so that you have a soul instead of like a list of qualities you could tell somebody in a minute.
Isn't it so crazy that all of our conformity is all this, like we spend our whole like, or some people spend their whole lives trying to conform into something for popularity or for, betterment at their job or some kind of thing. But really the coolest things about people are the weirdest fucking nerdy passions that they were always like, well, I never told anyone I was into comics, or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, that's how you meet your soul family, by like coming clean about that one geeky thing that you're in love with that you don't tell. I play the flute every Wednesday.
Or like when you were talking about playing with your friends and like how weird I'm like, if people saw like how weird Johnny and I were, they'd be like, whoa, or something fucking wrong with them. Or like, no, we're just like really weird and it's fun, like you said. And that's the type of shit that like, I'm never going to make a video about that. You're never going to see me acting like that. Maybe if you go to a meetup, then you might see it. That's it.
I know, like some of the goofy, the most authentic things are when you're your most kid self.
Yeah.
When you're like just dancing because, singing because, messing with your animals, messing with your friends, teasing, like skipping down somewhere. You might find in your adult life and then you jump on the back of the cart and ride it to the car. And you're like, oh, that was fun. I haven't done that in a while. But other adults saw you and they were mildly jealous. Like, I need to jump on the back of the cart on my way out of the store. Like, that's the shit. Like, when you were a kid, you were like, when I'm an adult, I'm going to always jump on the cart and ride it to the car. But somewhere in your adult life, you're just like, where's my phone? I got to put my change away. Where's my key? Boop, 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 boop. It's like, no, just be again. We have all these toys and people around us. There's music playing in every grocery store we're at. You can really just start dancing in the aisles. Who cares? You'll make somebody else's day and probably your own.
I love it. This is actually how we can like categorize where people are at in their like soul journey, is how they react to somebody like speeding down the parking lot, like standing on the cart. So like if they're like, oh, that is not what you're supposed to do, like, all right, you're like, really. Or if you're like, fuck yeah, I forgot and thank you and I'm gonna do that next time too, like, all right, you made it, you're going pretty far.
I know, you got a big kid up. That's what and everybody, we're always like, oh, I'm trying to be 4D, I'm 5D, I'm so enlightened, and I'm all these things. And it's like, sometimes own your 2D. Just be 2D as fuck. Be stupid. Like, eat candy, watch crappy movies, listen to shit music, like whatever. Just own it when you're doing it. Like, live in it.
It's another way of like listing your little characteristics. You're like, oh, I see fairies and I have a purple crystal on my wrist and it lets me communicate with them. You're like, no one cares. Like, we care about all of that, actually, even the Adidas, but like, never as a list and never as like an expectation that I need to have a certain response to it. Like, let it just be what it is. It'll come up or not. Like, let it go. Calm down.
Yeah, it'll come up in the porch convo. We don't need to know you're like, hi, here's my age, here's my sign,
like
here's who I sleep
profile.
with. Yes, that's exactly what we all do to each other. If you ever watch, I notice it a lot with men when they first meet each other, their second question is, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, it's very, what do you do? Like, a lot when I'm talking. Yeah, like right after the handshakes, what do you do? Like, I find it, in my job now where I serve tables and bartend, when the older dudes meet me and they shake my hand, like, so how long are you planning on being here? Like, just this part of this is just not where people stay. What are you doing
You
over
can't
here?
just be here.
Yeah, what do you do? I'm like, I do a lot out of here, but no one cares about that. Everyone wants to know what you do to make your money.
Which is the least important part
Stupid.
about you. Like, yeah, I don't understand how to answer that question anymore. People are like, what do you do? I'm like, like, honestly, like, what could I even say?
I daydream at whether or not the moon's reflection is that of the land masses.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, no, like, what do you do for money? I'm like, I mean, there's like 60 things. Do you want me to list them all or like what? And then so like, they're like, oh, so you're self-employed? I'm like, I don't really have a business. I don't know. I don't know how to answer this question anymore. It's really difficult. I need like a quick answer. If you have one, please tell me.
You live in a whole different realm.
I'm in a whole different level than you. I can't even answer this question.
You're like, are dragons real to you or not?
Yeah. They're like,
okay.
That's what
Let's go
do.
deeper into this. Yeah, just pick a random weird one and see, what are your thoughts on dinosaurs?
And then when they're like, why did you, like, that's what I do. I ask people random weird questions.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of this thing called life.
I've been at it for 40 years. Where are you at?
What do you think? Simulation? Are you on the Christ journey? What's your thing? That's how I like to ask people. Like, what are you doing over here?
They're like just picking out sprouts, and you just like walk up to them and ask them that.
Be like, do you think the sprouts hurt when they're plucked?
How many of these are individuals, or is this a collective unit here?
Is this a collective? Is this your sprout collective?
Oh, it's too much fun. What is the hardest part about right here, right now?
Boredom.
Yeah, really? Are you bored with this all? Not this.
I'm just like, I can't fucking deal with like the same regurgitation. I just feel like we're all stuck on this loop of like gas prices, border war, blah, blah. It's like this loop of the same thing over and over again. And it's just like, oh, in these 2 years, we vote for these people. In these 2 years, we vote for this. Every 4 years, the Summer Olympics. Every other 2 years is the Winter Olympic. It's like just the same regurgitation cycle. And it's fucking boring. It's fucking boring.
It's the endless meeting.
Yeah, I'm just, so anyway, I can just be weird and make it weird and get weirder, and the less I give a fuck what anyone thinks. And if I'm the crazy lady in town, like I kind of long to be the lady in the old like house on the hill where they're like, she's a witch.
Yeah. She time travels.
Yeah, she's up there doing weird experiments. The lightning just strikes at her house. That's like the future I see for myself. If you guys all want to play into the new world order, I'm taking a different LARP.
Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful. See, that's imagination. And now you're gonna go that way because you decided it was true.
Now I'm the cat lady.
Yes. I'm gonna be the bunny lady. Sorry about your bunnies with your beautiful butterflies in the background, but I'm gonna have a bunch of bunnies and I'm gonna eat them.
You're going to boil them and give them to all your lovers.
Yes.
That's what I used to say. If I had a crush on somebody or something, I'd be like, ooh, I have a crush on them. I'm almost boil your bunny crush on them.
Oh, wow. I didn't know this was a thing.
Oh, you know, like, what is that? Something attraction, fatal attraction with Glenn Close.
I'm the word. You'll learn this about me. I don't know.
It's like an old movie, and it's like she's like obsessed. I don't know. Maybe it's Michael Douglas, but she's like obsessed with him. And so one of the things is she boils his bunny, like his pet bunny. I don't know who. Maybe it's his kid's pet bunny.
Boiling attraction.
Yeah, I just knew it was a bunny boil.
I'm gonna make like clothes out of their pelts and just be like the weirdest fucking person too. We'll just like communicate.
Shaman fur, but bunny.
Yeah.
I'm into it. Are you gonna have antlers on your bunny suit, like the jackalope?
Dude, yes, I'm definitely gonna have antlers. Good call. Has to be antlers on that suit. It has like a big deep hood with antlers that come out of it. For sure.
I'm feeling it.
And
I feel antlers over headdress.
Yes, this is part of my thing. This is like it's in the book and everything. And we can communicate from hilltop to hilltop, and the kids in our communities will like soon learn of our connection and be like, it goes beyond our town.
And they'll have to find each other.
Yeah, it'll be like the sequel. So
I'm into it.
what's the best part of right now?
Um, Trusting myself and authenticity and the connections that I'm making with people that I've never touched in the flesh.
Wow, you always have like the best answers, like you were waiting for. I just want everyone to know that Chaney did not know the questions I was going to ask her ahead of time. That's perfect.
No, I just am so in awe of like these deep fucking connections that I've made with people that I know I'm going to see them one day. And in the new world order of it all, it's like even it doesn't need a date and time or any of that. It just feels more powerful than all of that. It's almost like they're forcing all of us to really grow into our powers by keeping us all in our own cages. They're forcing us to telecommunicate. They're forcing us to believe in each other's energies. They're forcing us to, and because of, I still have this phone and I still have my authenticity. So if I'm like, I just saw this, it reminded me of you. And you can send it right back that you're like, holy shit, this just is happening in my life right now. Now we're having immediate validations that our powers and connections are real. So I think when we're honest with each other and if we allow, I call it playing in your magic. I think that is what the friendships should be past this, whatever was 2019 or 2020 or those friendships that you had. Like you should start playing with those connections that you have. Cause I think it was Kara Mosher was saying like healers unlock healers, psychics unlock psychics, you know, and I do think that's true. And so the more people that you connect with in this kind of way and play in your magic, you guys are all unlocking each other. And you're not going to have every superpower, but you're going to have a lot of them. And some of them aren't even superpowers. Like I think telecommunication is just a normal thing that we used to do.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with that. We forgot it. I don't know if we were lazy or complacent or what happened or if it was like drilled out of us, but we're getting it back. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, is that them forcing us into recreating that, remembering that, and like being that again and developing all of those things and these connections? Is that part of like the purpose of this thing that is like seems anti-human and like seems to be so foreign and seems the exact opposite, and like, you know, that it has actually a role and a purpose to play. I hate saying it because I feel like people are gonna think that I'm like condoning somehow or like, no, I'm just like playing with the idea, like, why does this exist at all? Maybe there's a purpose to it.
I almost think the looshing of it, if we're the battery and we're inevitably good, I know people don't like the simple of just good, there's got to be more than being good.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Maybe it's action behind good would be what there has to be. But if we're the battery, regardless, for the good and the bad, then even if the bad's using us as the battery, eventually it's going to implode on them because we're good. So no matter how much they try to loosh us and make our free will work against itself and all this all over the world, and we have no idea what's happening in any part of the world because you're like, you have to talk to your friend in Cuba now to say, is this really happening in Cuba right now? You have to talk to your friend in fucking Florida. Is this really happening in Florida right now? Is this really happening in Oregon? Is this really happening in New Zealand? You have to ask all these places because you really don't know, but we're lucky enough that we have connections now to all these places that I can reach out to you and you could be like, hold on, give me an hour. And then for real, and you could do the same to me. And it's not because either of us are like so well connected. It's just because I'm sure a lot of people listening that just have their internet friends could be like, shit, I could call someone in the UK right now. I could ask somebody in Russia what was happening right now. And that is fucking amazing.
It is really
It's
cool.
incredible. It's like no matter what they try to do with these evil copper connections, like we're the precious metal. We transmute all of it eventually, but you have to believe you can.
Yeah. That's so rad, and it's so hopeful, and it just makes me go back to that. If we are some sort of like petri dish thing that they're like experimenting to try to grow like just the perfect charge for their fucking batteries or whatever, that is going to happen. We're going to explode, and they're going to be like, ah, fuck, another one ruined, and they're going to throw us in the garbage where we can then just do whatever the fuck we want.
And there has to be leaders of a new world. Like, are you a leader of the new world, or are you going to let somebody else lead you? And if you're deciding, I kind of like I keep telling people the lot like a lot in the Bible, how he was told by God not to look back or he was going to turn to a pillar of salt, and his wife looked back. That's kind of how I feel about spirituality and judgment these days. Like, I'm not trying to look back at anyone and turn to salt. I want to look to my left and right and see the people standing with me, and I want to look forward and see all the people I strive to be. But I'm not Paul Revering anymore. My job of waking people up is over. Like, and I wish them well, like Trump to Ghislaine Maxwell. I wish you well, and maybe I'll see you on another platform. Maybe you'll take leaps and bounds over me one day and you'll be pulling me up to the next one. But I'm no longer looking back. I'm the only salt I'm messing around with is in protection spells. No.
Yeah. I love it. Where is that your hope of where things should go from here, or do you have another hope that we'll all just keep connecting and like growing and like not looking back and moving forward together? Or
For some reason, I feel like the corruption of America is what the world's waiting to unravel first. I feel like the world's just like, come on, America, get it together. And it feels weird because it feels like America, like the world's always waiting for America to get it together. Like even in the Viking of it all, like, come on, America, get it together. It just always seems to be, I don't know. I don't want a revolution. That is what I'm definitely anti. The idea of my sister and her daughters having to pick up a gun and fight for their food is the whole reason that I think we have to do it digitally, and why I think we have to do it with our signatures on paper, and why we have to fight with lawyers and make the reason the laws matter is so that people aren't always having to fight for freedom. You're born with freedom. God gives you freedom. Source, whatever you believe in, gives you that. But unfortunately, we live in a place, in a realm that if governments aren't set there to enforce your freedom, somebody will come and take your farm and take your wife and take your horses, and because there are psychopaths out there. And so we do have to make order out of chaos, and it has to be divine order that isn't the set of laws that's ever been put for us before, maybe.
Yeah, like some way that you have guidelines, expectations, or whatever, but you understand from the get-go, like, these are malleable because every situation's going to be unique, and we actually have to like find a way to trust each other and have everyone be a part of this enough so that it's never just one person, it's never just one point, it's not even like 3 permanent points or whatever, that it's like all points are permanent, everybody's engaged in it, and knowing like what the goal is, while understanding that sometimes it's a little bit gray or something. If I could get more vague than that, that's like that's my dream. Yeah, and I hope that we can build a beautiful future together. I know we can. It's just like, are we gonna or not? That's the fun part that we don't know yet, that we're finding out as we go, and that's what makes it exciting. But remind people where they can go to connect with you, and what your awesome show is all about, and how they can get that, and anything else that you want to remind people about.
They can find me at projectchaney.com or Project Chaney on Instagram, or Chaney_in_Wonderland on Instagram is my personal shitpost shadow band account, which is probably really hard to find. So Project Chaney everywhere. And I talk to all sorts of rad, amazing people that are changing the world, and they're small, do see the world in a different way in the large. And I kind of, people are like blowing my mind every day with just the way that they look at the world, and the way that their traumas or things that seem just really shitty, however they own it, or however it is turning them into, like, they're making gold out of it. They're alchemy, like Rumpelstiltskin. They're taking like this hay and turning it to gold. So yeah, that's how I think we heal the world.
Love it. I love your show for that reason, and I love some of your guests are so awesome, and you're just seriously like the best host in the world. You're just really, really good at interviewing people, and you always, obviously, given
projection.
Given this episode, people can tell just how awesome it is to talk to you always. So anybody you have on is always fun.
Well, my next show then is will be Johnny.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool. What good timing.
Yeah, it's so perfect and so weird. Everything, even about the synchronicity of the show, even how I always have Lindsay Foreman from Consciousness
Oh
Untapped.
yeah.
I had a migraine this morning. I was supposed to interview her this morning, and I saw you guys both on my calendar at the same day, and I felt like it was gonna throw off my timeline for a month. I like saw it build up. Like, am I person enough to sit down with two Lindsays in one day? Like, and the universe is like, no, you are
No.
not.
Oh, that is so weird. We were talking to when she was on my show or I was on hers or whatever. We're weirdly like the exact same person. Like, and we're both Lindsay, and she lives on a boat.
And you've
though,
been
which
on
is
my
cooler.
show at the same time
Yeah.
in life, and like it's like in on my calendar days that I'm like, huh, I'm surrounded by Lindsays.
It was weird. I was like, feel like I just did a show with Chaney, but it's actually been a while. But then I knew you had just done a show with Johnny, and then I knew that might come out soon too. And I'm like, it's a constellation of shows and people going on. So yeah, people can check that out and all your other episodes, which are always awesome.
Thank you.
I like.
Oh, and if I were going to tell anyone to do anything, start journaling again. Get a fun pen, get fun lead, like ink to paper matters, lead to paper matters. Find a fun journal, and who cares what you write? Just start again. There's something about the free flow of it and the creativity of it, and it's like art or music or singing. You get better at it. It like opens up your creativity. So I definitely think to start journal again.
That's a great. I just like what a synchro. Like yesterday or today, I don't remember which, but I was just thinking like I need to start journaling on paper again because all this shit's gonna be lost. Like all of it's gonna be lost. We know that for sure. But paper and pen like has a way of sticking around. Like people will like find it in 100 years and be like, oh, like here's a record of a normal life in the fucking 21st century.
And you remember it different. When you write shit down, it enters your brain in a whole different way than you tippy tap it. It's almost like taking a picture of a memory when you type it in the computer, whereas like you really feel the memory when you write it.
It's really
such a different thing.
It's been studied. You're absolutely right. And this is part of why I have my students take actual notes, and they'd be like, I could just type it. I'm like, no. Well, A, you're not going to be typing shit. You're going to be on fucking like Instagram or whatever. And B, no, it's way better for you to write this down. It hurts our hands. I'm like, oh, poor little babies.
And now we're like, oh, my thumbs hurt from texting so much. Like our parents would be like, are you tired? Does your finger hurt from writing?
Well, it's true. I'm writing. I'm not going to say to who because it's going to be a surprise in case they watch the show. But I'm writing this really long letter about this entire life journey of this person and like telling it from my perspective and sharing that with them. And I'm doing it all in cursive too, which is like, have you written in cursive for a while?
Yeah, I have a weird blocky cursive that I write in all the time, but I definitely have a few different writings depending on my emotions that I go through. But long form to really write out, like, no, I even think of the dent that gets on my finger right here when I write for too long.
That's exactly it. I've been writing this and I'm like got like half a page through and I was like, my finger hurts. Like I was like, oh yeah, I used to have like a callus there because we used to write and I just don't now. And anyways, I love that idea. Journal.
You need the triangle thing that goes on your pin.
Yeah.
Remember we used to have those cool things because we used to write so much we needed a cushion.
And they had to be the right color and the right shape and like
to match your Trapper Keeper.
Trapper Keepers. Lisa Frank, Trapper Keepers.
Oh my
day.
gosh, I can't believe you said Lisa Frank. That's always my part of the DMT trip. That makes me like, if this happens when you die, no one needs to do this.
We should never do this.
Lisa Frank world.
I like even at the time I was like, this is a bit much, but I never get it, so I'll enjoy it when I do. Yeah, it's like psychedelic, but like mixed with like Stepford Wife, like terror, like somehow, like perfection. Like it's pretty disturbing.
It was weird Stepford Wife where it's like a cat just staring at you blankly like a stripper who's had too much, like a sad stripper cat staring at you. It's psychedelic. Yeah, what a weird world.
Like there's pain hidden under this, I can tell.
What about That's Why We're Woke? Those Lisa Frank Trapper Keepers.
That was the spell that like
this will save them.
That's exactly what I think about though. I'm like, there is shit that humans do that like has no real explanation and no real purpose, but it's like the things that will save the fucking world. And those motherfuckers, like you said, they can't even create it. They can't even imagine what it might be, and we can't either because we haven't gotten there yet. But like that's our superpower, is just like the random shit that will come out of us at like the tiniest inspiration. That's my hope in humanity.
The slap bracelets that saved us all.
Yes,
slap bracelets.
You'll never even be able to explain how, but it worked. Well, what are your final thoughts that you want to leave people with before we say goodbye?
Keep holding the line, you guys. Keep holding the line for yourselves and each other. We are living through the biggest psyop of all time, and all the collective evil in the world has all built up to this, and it looks pretty sloppy. It looks like they're not winning. So just hang tight.
I love it. It's a beautiful hope. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom according to the brightest light, Chaney. Chaney, thank you for being on Rogue Ways tonight. It's always awesome to hang out with you.
It's always awesome to hang out with you.
You're like, it is always awesome, actually.
It is right. Always. It's your pleasure to meet me.
Continuity isn't all it's cracked up to be. We have it, we kind of need it, but it's a dangerous thing to depend on. The truth is, nothing ever has been or ever will be too continuous. Gravity isn't constant, the speed of light isn't constant, our consciousness isn't even constant. There are blips and bends and dips and turns in every single thing we can measure or interpret or experience, so why pretend? Moment to moment, anything could happen. Anything could change. Your hair, your spouse, your car, your family, your pathway through life, the parameters of what counts as life, the quality of the air, the presence of the sun, any of it, all of it, could change at any moment. The only constant there ever has or will be is change. So embrace it, know it, invite it, and revel in it. The pendulum is swinging, and you have two choices. You can ride that motherfucker to the end, or you can dodge it. And either way, shit will change. And either way, you move. And until you make your choice, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Bilderbergers called you, and I was like, hello? Hello? Ain't nobody answering shit, man. I mean, for real, man. I must have hung up. Phone rang again. And I was like, hello? Ain't nobody even answering, dog. Some real shit, man. They tapping my telephone. It's really the real when you step to the plate. And it ain't too late to change your ways of being fake. Humans create with creativity, so make what you create to shine through. All niggas wanna do is shine. Make your few rhymes, but they deaf to the blind. For those left behind, I crept and I climbed to the top of my mind. And I found I've been taught to be conformed, and I was never warned of the signs. Crimes committed as an adolescent, now I'm trapped through the system, stressing with aggression and emotive, through passion and emotion to set the truth in motion. They gave me Zola for a rainy day, and they gave me Zyprex to sleep my life away. Society's labeled a man to be bipolar. Might as well gave me heroin and Coca-Cola. This is how Western medicines work. This is also how Western religions work. And Americans work 9 to 5. Not asking the questions of how, when, where, what, and why. I remain on the quest thirsty for salvation. With a taste of blood, with a fallen warrior's dream of surviving this flood of chaos. Those who continue to judge a book by its cover are way off. Breaking these laws of a scarred prison, reminiscing of pain, taming niggas up in the system. Got us living a lie with a cry, nobody hears ya. Chances of life to revive an immortal lie. Breaking these bars of a scarred prison, reminiscing of pain, taming niggas up in the system. Got us living a lie with a cry, nobody hears ya. Chances of life to revive an immortal lie.
We're conditioned to be housebroken and weekend. Labor all week, pay them, and with the rest, drown away the weekend. Wires and voltages set strategically to damage chakras. Make sure to take those prescriptions given to you by the doctor. Wash it down with contaminated water. Worship a holy father, eat trash food, remain drained from the slaughter. Mother Nature's now the Illuminati's daughter. Through molestation, unnoticed by the blind line in every nation. Not allowed to know God is present in each and every individual. Ancient truth forgotten except the Bohemian Grove rituals. Inbred bloodlines created unruly ruling class of elites cold as reptiles. The awoke can even see the signs on the streets. Encryptions pass off as fiction and paranoia reaction. 33s and bows with skulls are laughing right now with Kennedy's assassin. 2 pillars burning. History repeats as I babble on truth. Write down our fate for centuries. I change their plans when I'm up in the booth.
Everlasting pressures of life got me up in the night,
not knowing if I'm wrong or right. Something within me tells me to fight, and it's like I'm trying to find the true nature of being godlike versus religious beliefs. Switching D tells me I'm doomed from day one out the womb. They want us to be consumed with fear, with negative thoughts engineered to fear God, and that's to fear oneself, and that's real. You tell me that I'm imperfect, how is that when everything's for a reason? You forget that everything is meant to be, but they got us withering away, not knowing sacred geometry, which degrades philosophy of every soul, in which they try to control your mind with limitations, over exceeding your expectations. You'll be considered an outcast with lacerations, so I continue to master patience, creating ways to make it through the Piscean age that's getting close to the Aquarian stage. As I stand strong on my God-given rod, it's my life against all odds to penetrate these imprisoned walls that creates flaws and false laws. So y'all niggas better recognize before you die, before you had the chance to survive, and that's breaking these walls of a scarred prison, reminiscing of pain, taming niggas up in the system. Got us living a lie with a cry, nobody hears ya. Chance to survive, to revive an immortal lie. Breaking these bars of a scarred prison, reminiscing of pain, taming niggas up in the system. Got us living a lie with a cry, nobody hears ya. Chance to survive, to revive an immortal lie. Breaking these bars of a scarred prison, reminiscing of pain, taming niggas up in the system. Got us living a lie with a cry, nobody hears ya. Chance to survive, to revive an immortal lie. Breaking these bars of a scarred prison, reminiscing of pain, taming niggas up in the system. Got us living a lie with a cry, nobody hears ya. Chance to survive, to revive an immortal lie.